We are the world's smallholder farmers, landless peasants, agricultural workers, fisher folk, pastoralists, indigenous peoples, rural women, youth, consumers, and advocates.
We are hungry for change. We need to transform our food systems radically.
Right now, there is no justice and equity. Majority of farmers who grow our food go to bed hungry, while so much food is wasted elsewhere.
Most of the food we eat come from monocultures and corporate farms, grown with toxic products sold by a few companies. Food can make us extremely unhealthy.
Food systems are unsustainable. Corporations burn down forests and pollute the planet in pursuit of profits.
This cooperation have pushed us deeper into our current health, environment, and economic crisis. But instead of being held accountable, they are given even more power.
We must push back through the Global People's Summit on Food Systems. We vow to struggle for just, equitable, healthy, and sustainable food systems.
We believe that peasants and indigenous peoples must have the right to own and control land, seeds, water, and other productive resources.
No one should be deprived of access to food because of poverty, war, or occupation.
Food producers must enjoy decent working and living conditions. The sovereign will of the people must decide food production. Women should be accorded equal recognition and rights.
People have the right to nutritious and sufficient food. Agroecology, or farming in harmony with nature, must be promoted to protect the health and well-being of all.
We need a healthy planet and environment capable of producing all of our food needs. People's food sovereignty provides a solid foundation for sustainability.
We reject the imposition of a single globalized food system. We want food systems that are culturally and biologically diverse, one that puts local needs first.
For food systems to work for the people and the planet, corporate control over food and agriculture must end.
Heighten the fight for just, equitable, healthy, and sustainable food systems now.
Good afternoon, everyone. To our participants, organizers, partner organizations, and guest speakers, welcome to Agroecology in Action for Localization and Food Sovereignty, our webinar for World Localization Day 2022. I'm Erin of PANAP, and I will be your facilitator for today. What we just watched was the Global People's Summit Declaration, a wonderful animation that highlights some of the issues we're going to discuss today. Not only are food producers hungry for change, they're also challenging corporate-led food systems, monoculture, pesticide-laden crops, and unsustainable agricultural practices. Today, on World Localization Day, our webinar focuses on two key processes for just and equitable change: localization and agroecology. Localization is the process of scaling back our economy to a human scale, in essence, to allow our products to be produced locally and regionally, to respect our local ecologies, and to form lasting relationships with our communities and the lands that we grow on. And what better way to complement localization than with agroecology? Agroecology is a productive, resilient, and sustainable approach to farming and production that integrates science with local and indigenous knowledge and practice. Rooted in the principle of people's food sovereignty, rural populations practice agroecological food systems through collective farming, replacing pesticides with non-chemical alternatives, seed conservation and sharing, and lastly, staunchly defending their rights to land and resources. Today's webinar aims to gather advocates and practitioners of agroecology, agrarian reform, and localization to exchange insights, experiences, and strategies to confront the global food crisis and rising food insecurity, and to raise awareness of the indispensable need for genuine agrarian reform to advance agroecology. So this event would not be possible if it weren't for our partners, Peasant Movement of the Philippines or KMP, Khoj Society for People's Education, Pan North America, as well as Local Futures, who initiated this campaign to promote local economies. A gentle reminder to our participants, please refrain from flooding the Zoom Q&A box with unnecessary comments and remarks. Let's save it for the open forum at the latter part of our webinar. With that, it's a pleasure for me to introduce our community leaders who are here with us today to share how they are combating corporate-led globalization with agroecology. Our first speaker is Ms. Marcia Ishii of Pan North America, who will be discussing the critical role of agroecology in localization. Thank you.
Thank you for the kind introduction. It's a pleasure and wonderful to be here with all of you today. So I will be speaking today about ways in which agroecology contributes to localization, and I will now share my screen. Is that all good? Let me know if there's a problem with the screen share. Otherwise, I'll proceed. So the first question I'd like to address is, what is agroecology? Agroecology has many beautifully diverse manifestations. It can perhaps be described simply as an approach to the design, the co-creation, and the management of sustainable agri-food systems, one that emphasizes farming in harmony with nature and the integration of local and indigenous knowledge with ecological principles and processes. So as such, agroecology offers a powerful approach in the growing global movement of localization, which is all about bringing our societal structures, especially our economic ones, back to local and regional scales in ways that ensure accountability, community control and well-being, ecological integrity, and social and environmental justice. Agroecology itself is not static, but is continually evolving, drawing on the many rich traditions of ancestral and indigenous knowledge that have been developed over millennia, while simultaneously integrating cutting-edge innovations obtained through scientific inquiry and other forms of investigation, which can also be conducted collaboratively by farmers and scientists working together. Importantly, I'd like to emphasize that agroecology is also a social movement, one that is led by peasant farmers, fishers, and workers the world over, who are calling for the transformation of power structures in society that have for too long kept so many communities separated from their seeds, their land, waters, and forests, and even their ancestral and cultural knowledge. So the agroecology movement responds by building political power for change. So now, why is agroecology a crucial approach in the localization of economies? I will talk about 5 key principles of agroecology that illustrate some of the reasons why it offers such a promising way forward. The first one, agroecology is place-based. From an ecological perspective, agroecology is in fact all about localization because it is place-based. That means it is finely attuned and responsive to ecological conditions, the local conditions and processes, and it's based on observations gathered over countless seasons of what grows well, when, and where. Secondly, agroecology puts people first. It centers farmers as key decision makers who themselves investigate, discover, understand, and respond to local conditions appropriately. Women farmers in particular bring enormous knowledge based on their expertise in producing diverse crops, in saving and exchanging seeds, working as herbalists and healers in their communities, protecting and often fiercely defending biodiversity, and in so many other ways. As to be successful, The collaboration between farmers and, we might say, formally trained scientists and researchers must always engage respectfully with local and indigenous knowledge holders. This then can lead to deeper understanding of the farming practices that are best suited and adapted to the local needs, the ecological conditions, and the actual priorities of a community. So thirdly, with its promotion of biodiversity, agroecology maintains not only healthy and diversified cropping systems, but also the healthy functioning of surrounding natural ecosystems, as well as important ecosystem processes that benefit people, such as pollination, nutrient and water cycling, and the biocontrol of pests provided by natural enemies. By embracing systems complexity, agroecology increases a farming system's resilience, in fact, as well as the broader community's resilience to environmental stresses from, for example, severe or extreme weather associated with climate change or pest outbreaks, and economic stresses from, for example, rising input costs or price swings in unstable global markets. So diversity and complexity are actually very important features of agroecology that support also the resilience of local economies. And these characteristics stand in sharp contrast to monocultural production systems that are instead rigid and inherently unstable, requiring expensive interventions and typically leaving rural communities more, not less vulnerable to system shocks and stresses. The fourth one I want to mention is agroecology's ability to reduce dependencies. Dependencies on expensive chemical inputs and technologies that are controlled and marketed by global corporations, while instead agroecology offers independence and freedom from fossil fuel intensive agricultural practices. By integrating or by utilizing ecological nutrient and pest management, agroecology reduces the waste and the greenhouse gas emissions that are associated with the manufacture, the packaging, the long distance transportation of external inputs, chemical inputs. Furthermore, agroecology optimizes system efficiency through localized recycling of biomass and nutrients and water and energy. And these characteristics contribute to what some call closed loop agriculture. And that is very obviously a desirable attribute of sustaining local economies. And finally, but certainly not least, agroecology builds collectivity and social solidarity. And that is, again, crucial to maintaining local economies. This can take the form of farmer to farmer knowledge sharing networks or producer cooperatives, direct producer consumer relationships based on mutual trust and care. So these kinds of solidarity-based relationships can extend even beyond a single community and support bioregional communities. So we can also begin to think at the bioregional level. So thus, agroecology is really a foundation, as we can see, for the localization of the food system, providing an abundance of locally grown, fresh, nutritious, and culturally appropriate food, liberating a community from dependence on food imports or on chemical inputs brought from far away, while supporting community and ecosystem health, that health that is essential for local economies to thrive. So I will just take a moment now to go to the ground. So how does agroecology contribute to localization? What does it look like in practice? We're going to hear more in a moment from our other speakers, but I thought I would just share a couple examples from other regions of the world. Here I am referring to the Women's Producer Associations in Mozambique that are part of the Mozambican Farmers Union, or UNAC. Agroecological methods of farming have long been an important part of the social and cultural life of Mozambican communities. But with the advent of large-scale industrial agriculture from neighboring Swaziland and South Africa, Mozambicans increasingly have begun to rely on food imported from those countries, and much of it contaminated with high levels of pesticides. To restore community self-reliance and reinvigorate local food production, the Mozambican Farmers Union began promoting agroecology, and women are in the forefront of many of these initiatives. One group featured here was established by widows to support each other in managing their farming activities. So they began diversifying their crops and mulching, composting, exchanging seeds among themselves, integrating many agroecological practices. Their success with increased productivity, lower input costs, improved health, and overall increased net income excited and empowered them to move on to organizing to tackle the political and economic factors, the obstacles threatening their livelihoods, such as very specifically the surge in land grabs facilitated by the government that was happening across Mozambique. So these women joined the Southern African Rural Women's Assembly. And this is an alliance of rural women's movements across 8 countries of Southern Africa that is organizing to defend their rights to land, seeds, culture, and livelihoods. So really exemplifying the political dimension of agroecology, a dimension that is, again, highly relevant to sustaining local economies in the face of corporate power and the stifling, constricting pressures of globalization. My second example, I'll just be
sorry, Ms. Marcia, sorry,
Yeah.
you have about 2 minutes left for your presentation.
That's fine, thank you.
Thank
So
you.
in Valencia, Spain, the people here developed a deeply participatory and democratic food council working towards an agroecological transition in their city. And this one engages producers in the broader territory beyond the city as well. So they created this democratic governance space composed of members of all of Valencia's food system, from farmers, unions, consumers, schools, academics, and the private sector, such as markets for ecological producers. And their success is based on their commitment to ecofeminism and the right to food. Just in conclusion then, in terms of results, we see clearly that agroecology offers the possibility of healthy communities, healthy ecosystems that are foundational to strong local economies, freedom from dependence on external inputs, the ability to reinvest their economic savings and resources within a community. And with the focus on social justice and equity, we see the transformation of social relationships, the political empowerment of people, especially of women, within households, within and among communities. And we see more equitable and respectful partnerships between farmers, researchers, and many other actors in the food system. So I would suggest that together, these contributions of agroecology offer many promising pathways towards localization and the transition to more resilient food and farming systems. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Marcia, for your thought-provoking discussion. Indeed, this is the perfect opportunity to learn the foundational role of agroecology. I really like what you said, that agroecology is not static, it's growing and evolving. It's always alive as a social movement. Thank you. Now, to discuss agroecology and the right to land, it is with great pleasure that I introduce to you our next speaker, Ms. Sarah Jenny Rengam, the Executive Director of PANAP. Thank you.
Thanks, Erin. Thanks for the introduction. My topic today is agroecology and the right to land. And I wanted to basically start by saying that the state of food security and nutrition in the world 2021 report basically says 768 million people faced hunger in 2020 and around 180 million more from 2019. And so the COVID-19 pandemic, the number of food insecure people globally swelled by 320 million in just 1 year. Sorry, oops. The pandemic has also made new opportunities for big corporations and the economic elite to grab farmlands, forests, fishing ground and other resources for greater profits and amid the crisis. So while we were all reeling in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, people were looking for ways to, grab land and resources. And Bill Gates here is the king. He's got one of the highest numbers in terms of acreage or farmlands in the US, and he's been buying off all these farmlands from farmers. So what has happened is the capitalist industrial production pushed through World Bank, IMF, structural adjustment, colonial times, and then now with imperialism, really pushed for export-oriented production and destroyed the livelihoods of our local farmers and indigenous communities, and basically grab land and resources in order to push for this kind of production and control. What we are seeing is the corporate capture and the continuing hunger that fuels more conflicts and struggles for land and resources worldwide. So here is a protest in Indonesia, which was dealt with in a very repressive, very aggressive way, and basically the violations of human rights, where the young people who protested were arrested and jailed. So what we are seeing is that with economic and political power at their disposal, these are landlords, the big rich people, the corporations. So land and resources are grabbed, and they resort to this even as more repression of rural communities results in deteriorating human rights situation for the rural people who face extrajudicial killings, arrests, and detention based on trumped up charges and other forms of persecution. Recently, 92 people were just arrested because they were farming, or bukalan. They were doing farming in areas where land struggles were going on, and they got the land. So they were planting for the next season. What we are seeing, and this is some of the documentation from PAN, who, we have a No Land, No Life campaign. We had from January 2021 to 2022, arrest, detention, and legal prosecution, and over 87 cases and 169 for victims. And these are mainly farmers, indigenous peoples, women, and these are some of the details in terms of the total cases. What the farmers have been doing is really protesting, because we need a farmer for every meal, for every food that we take. We need a farmer, and so they said, stop killing farmers. And it's happening everywhere where all this is being pushed, and farmers are really losing their land and being killed, and there's violations of human rights that they face. And who profits in all of this in terms of this industrial agriculture? You have agrochemicals. 4 corporations basically control 70% of the pesticide markets. If you look at seeds, it's 67%. It's the same 4 companies, corporations: BASF, Syngenta, Corteva, and Bayer. So these are the companies we all know. Sometimes they change names. They buy over each other, merge, and this is what is happening in terms of control. The farmers are the ones who produce the food, but all the inputs are now being controlled by this big TNCs, and land grabbing is also part of this agenda. So what is happening? Of course, communities are not keeping quiet. They are continuing to resist this land grabs, and they're promoting agroecology. And so they are organizing to resist land grabs, and agroecology is a tool. We always feel that agroecology is by itself not able to alter exploitative productions relations, but caused by landlessness and land grabbing, but it has a potential to be transformative when pursued in the context of genuine agrarian reform. So one is organizing and asserting people's rights with organizing farmers, consumers, rural communities with urban communities. We have a potent force in actions and struggles to counter all of this. And the push towards right to land and resources as part of this organizing, together with the right to safe, nutritious food for all, is part of the movement building that we are seeing in the countryside, in youth sector everywhere. It's slowly building up. Second is we need to have a developing agro-ecosystem technologies. And this could be anything, organic, biodynamic, permaculture, etc. But it has to be people-led, it has to be farmer-led, and where farmers are empowered and are active participants in development rather than passive recipients treated by corporate science and the green revolution and all the new technologies that are being pushed on farmers. And we can see that they are not part of they're not participating in the process. Third, we have to have a redesigning of the ecosystem based on ecological process. And we've seen this from the Masha's presentation, why ecological processes are important. We need biodiversity. And I think this is really very important in order to protect biodiversity, because they, if you look at the kind of insects in terms of pollinators, predators, and beneficial, those are very important as part of biodiversity, but also in terms of a broad biodiversity. And so productivity cannot be just a measure of production, but it should be part of sustainability, diversity, resilience, and addressing broader societal objectives like food sovereignty and social equity. Building local economies, I think Masha went in quite detail. So I just want to say that it's really very important, this farmer and consumer links. We need to have more of those. And it also is a climate change mitigation process, because you don't have those food mileage where you need to food that does not travel thousands of miles and kilometers to get to the consumers. And so it also strengthens local food security and builds the local economy, and that really promotes inclusive development. And finally, very important is the building of movements, and only empowered movement building will allow us to go back and take control and basically resist corporate control and ensure that agriculture and food production is in the hands of farmers and consumers, and land is there for peasants and the landless. So I think that those are the 5 very, very important transformative processes that we need to start to inculcate, and I think some examples will be shared later. I just wanted to highlight the women in Tamil Nadu. This is the Tamil Nadu Women's Forum, and they spent 10 years fighting and struggling for their land. for land that actually belongs to them, but was basically grabbed by these politicians and the elites in the country. And so they fought and they got the land. And then they decided, why don't we pool the land and our efforts and our hard work and do a collective farm. And so now they're producing agroecologically, looking at local markets to share their produce. Wonderful examples, and these are Dalit women who are the most marginalized in India, and so driving a tractor is a wonderful empowering process for them, because one, they are Dalit women, they have never had this kind of opportunities. Second, usually all this is done by men, so now they have land titles in their name and they're working together as a collective. So I just want to kind of emphasize agroecology as a viable pro-people, pro-planet alternative. And for agroecology to be truly viable and beneficial, it has to be a pursuit in the context of a thoroughgoing, genuine agrarian reform and long-term rural development. It has to be go hand in hand with genuine agrarian reform and long-term rural development. Agroecology can only thrive when there's a substantial and reliable state support for production and extension services, and when there is a steady domestic market that will absorb locally and agroecologically grown farm produce. And right now, thousands of food producers in Asia are producing agroecologically and through agroecological methods. So it's a way forward. And here we have the Vietnamese women farmer who are saying agroecology now, and CGFAD, which is saying protect our children from pesticides, join us. So I think that's very important to have the community supported agriculture and supported by the state will, facilitate the marketing in Laos, for example, the local.
Sorry, please wrap up your presentation. You'll have maybe a minute left. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Erin. So just wanted to add that in Laos, the local government actually provided the market for women farmers to sell their organically, agroecologically produced food. So I think that's the end of my presentation, just to say that the Global People's Summit on Food System basically called for just, equitable, healthy, and sustainable food systems. So farmers, not corporations, speak the word. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah, for your insightful discussion. It's great to see how agroecology is inextricably linked to the right to land. Corporate agriculture has definitely destroyed local communities, and there's definitely a need to resist land grabs while promoting agroecology as a potent method to organize and assert land rights. With that, I'd also like to encourage everyone to check out PANAP's first issue of Counterpoint. It's our policy brief. It's entitled Transforming Agroecology and the Right to Land. You can read and share our Counterpoint issue by downloading from the PANAP website, which our tech team has sent to the chat box. Thank you. Now, to put agroecology into practice, we have Ms. Nasira Habib from the Khoj Society of People's Education to share with us her insights. Nasira, you have 10 minutes for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. And hi, everyone. I think Marcia and Saro has set the stage for me to tell you a story of agroecology. Just a minute, let me share my screen. Can you see my screen?
No, we can't see.
Oh, let me. Okay. Now can you see my screen?
Yes, Nasira.
Yes.
Okay. So I thought to tell you a tale today instead of giving facts and figures about what has we have been doing and about other initiatives in the country. So when I was thinking about agroecology and localization, so I was reminded by a statement made by a village woman who, like 20 years back, when I was chatting with her, she said, in the olden days, I mean, she was talking about her childhood, that in the olden days we could grow everything in our village except salt and kerosene oil. So that put me thinking, and I was reminded of my childhood. I must share with everybody that I come from the central part of Punjab in Pakistan, which is known for its fertility and which was known for its fertility and prosperity. The picture you have in front of you, this is to me, when I think about my childhood, this was a typical view of Punjabi household in a village. I mean, it was like you would always have a huge tree, and behind the tree you can see the building. And I mean, this was, and animals were like an integral part of the rural lives. And there was such a beautiful interface of farming and animal keeping. So I will share with you with some more images. Like this was like, when we talk about Marsha and Sarah talked about collective action and community cohesion. So I just wanted to share, I mean, it's an old picture, but in those days, like in my childhood, it was not possible to prepare the land, to sow seeds and to harvest the crop individually, because it was always a community affair, and people helped each other and supported each other to. And obviously, if you support one family, then that family would come to support you. So when I think about the principles of agroecology and how we treat Mother Earth, so then, I mean, I could see so many things in this picture about how the land was prepared. It was you can see that there is no deep plowing and the soil is not harmed like by the heavy machines these days. So this you can see as an image of harvesting. Men and women, they were always, and actually the whole community supported each other in harvesting the crops. And you can see, I wanted to show you this picture because this is not only separating the grains, but it was a very happy occasion, and it was always men and women. When doing this, they were singing and humming, and So it was not only a collective affair, but it was because harvest was seen as something as something as a very, very happy occasion. So this image tells us about the celebrations because in Punjab, we had many celebrations associated with harvesting and celebrating food and celebrating the bounties of nature. And we have, I mean, so many variations of like singing and dancing, and I mean, many kinds of dances which are specific to specific occasions. And I mean, it's not only seeing this in photos. I mean, as a child, I was like, I lived this culture and I enjoyed all these celebrations myself. And this is the typical Punjabi food. And you can see the richness of this simple food. I mean, it was like roti and buttermilk, milk and milk products were the basis of the routine everyday food in Punjab. So when we talk about nutrition, and there was such a diversity of food because monoculture was not there before Green Revolution. So there was such a diversity of crops and diversity of foods. So every season was a reason to celebrate this or the other thing. And then I could see creativity at play. See, you can see it's a very, very simple structure, very simple, these flowers, and this design is very simple, but simple and graceful at the same times. To me, that showed that people had time to spare, they had some leisurely time, they had peace, and they had some kind of prosperity, because prosperity is also relative. I mean, with this house, if a Punjabi had enough grains at home and animals and milk to drink, milk and milk products, they considered themselves very, very fortunate and very prosperous. So buildings were not the symbol of prosperity those days. See, another expression of creativity, and these are just, I mean, the tips of iceberg. If I dive into the sea of this very, very rich culture, so we can spend hours and hours on that. But then then came in the Green Revolution, and Green Revolution, what the Green Revolution brought with it. I mean, I don't need to go into the details of that because it brought deep flowing tractors, other machines. It brought water intensive seeds. I mean, water intensive seeds because we are.
Sarah, you have about a minute left for your presentation.
Okay, no problem. So it brought toxic chemicals, it brought monoculture, market dependence. I mean, it was exactly the opposite of what I have shown to you. There is no festivity. Like 50% of the population is food insecure in my country now. So we think that we need to, I mean, if we need to go back, if we want to go back to prosperity, we need to have nutrient-dense food, and we have abundance. So we need to go back to our traditions to a great extent. And I mean, I feel that we need to have a campaign because Sarah talked about the land reforms. So I always think that in our country, every village had common lands which are illegally occupied by people. So our communities must reclaim their rights to their right to common lands, and those common lands should be used to grow organic community food forests. And we can bring about revolution if we could achieve this objective. And at Khoj, we are trying to play our role. We have launched 1,000 organic edible urban gardens campaign, and we are steadily moving towards that. In Pakistan, we have alienated ourselves from soil to a great extent. It's a great challenge, but we are moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nasira, for your very comprehensive presentations. Your discussions are truly timely. The culture of community-led agriculture is creative, rich, and replete with lessons for all of us. And communities must definitely reclaim their land. Thank you. For our next speaker, we have Kasamang Miriam Villanueva of Kasama Lupang Ramos to share the role of agroecology in Lupang Ramos, their farming community in the Cavite province of the Philippines, through both a video as well as a discussion. So we'll be presenting our video. Thank you.
Alam mo, napakalaki ng papel ng kababaihang magbubukid sa produksyon. Sa totoo lang, partikular dito sa amin, yung usapin ng pagpaplano, kung ano yung itatanim, kung paano ito pagkatapos itanim, saan to dadalhin, paano kikita yung aming itatanim, yun yung pinakamahalagang papel. Hindi naman yun kayang isipin ng kalalakihan sa karanasan ko na bilang ako ay nanay. Ang namamahala ko sa marketing, kung baga sa kabuuan, ay di yung nanay. At kalahok din kami mismo doon sa produksyon. Mula sa pagtatanim, paglilinis ng taniman, at saka pag-aani nito, malaki ang papel namin bilang mga kababaihan. Bumabangon at tumitindig para sa karapatang mabuhay at para sa lupa at kabuhayan. Yun lang po at welcome. Sa po nung lumaban kami kasi 3 dekada na dito. Talagang mga leader kababaihan ang tumindig sa unahan. Lalo na sa mga negosasyon, sa mga kapulisan, sa mga goons, sa mga nanghaharas. Ang nasa unahan niyan ang kababaihan. Talagang kami mga kababaihan, ang mga anak namin, kasama ng mga anak namin, humiga sa gitna para lamang wag makalagpas yung traktora na kung saan ay mananalanta ng aming mga pananim.
Bakit nga ba di mabubuhay ng bayan? Walang kababaihan, ngunit kung tayo sa sangkarang walang hanggan. Bakit nga ba magulit sa ating mahal tayong lahat na biktima? Nagalupitan, karahasyan, pilit tayong ginagapa. Sabi ang pagkalit ang pagbagon, ito na ang ating panahon. Bangon, mabahay bangon, ito na ang ating panahon. Itaas ang kamay,
Yung pagiging mapayapang makipagnegosasyon, siguro ang karanar sa amin yung mga kababaihan. Yung magbigay ng galit, nasa amin din yung mga kababaihan na ipamukha kung sino man yung mga haras na ang buhay namin na ito lang. Tunay na reforma sa lupa! Kapag walang kababaihang tumindig, siguro malayo pa ang tagumpay. Pero kapag sumamang tumindig sa laban ng mga kababaihan, amoy tagumpay na yon at sasamahan pa ng mga anak nito. Kabuhayan at seguridad sa pagkain ang nais namin sa paglaban sa karapatan sa lupa. Seguridad sa pagkain ng mga susunod na henerasyon. Kasi ang preserbasyon ng lupa, yung lupa'y buhay. Ibig sabihin, kung patuloy mo yan lalasunin ng lalasunin, kagaya ng paglalason natin sa katawan natin, na nabibili natin ng kung ano-anong pestisidyo ang meron, mamamatay din ang taba ng lupa. At paano ito pagkinabangan ng susunod na henerasyon sa susunod pang mga buhay natin? Kaya ngayon nagpa-practice kami kung paano ibabalik yung dating sinira ng mga Panginoong may lupa na taba ng lupa dahil sa paglalagay ng mga kung ano-anong mga abono. Ngayon ay pinipilit namin itong i-recover sa pamamagitan ng unti-unting pagpapalit ng practice sa usapin ng pagtatanim. Kung mahal mo talaga yung nag-aalala ka sa seguridad sa pagkain sa hinaharap, mamahalin mo yung lupa at ipepreserba mo din yung kanyang taba at lakas para sa kinabukasan. Ipaglaban!
Thank you for that presentation. It's wonderful to see the connection between feminism as well as the right to land and how we can preserve the land for future generations. Now we'll have kasamang Miriam to share her experience and their experience in their community in Lupang Ramos. Come Miriam, you have 10 minutes for your discussion. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. Hindi ko mabuksan yung aking video. I cannot open my video.
We just made you co-host, Miriam. Okay, now we can see your video. Thank you.
Thank you and good afternoon to each and everyone. I want to focus on the lesson that we have learned and the values we got from our bungkalan and agroecology at Lupang Ramos. To share with them and to inspire every farmer, especially for those who are seeking and fighting for their rights. So number one lesson, nothing is impossible when there is collective action. The seemingly impossible becomes possible. If we did not sustain our action with a petition signing, the gateway of the 372 hectares, land will remain empty or maybe already converted to subdivision and malls. Number two, we have proven that the height of the pandemic and there's no hunger in the land cultivated area, we call bungkalan. The community was safe from COVID. We're thankful that even though pandemic came upon us, the bungkalan is prepared and is progressing in terms of farming because it will only depend the delayed distribution of aid. We would have died from the COVID, but the hunger. Before Ms. Patrengnon made Community Pantry organizing, Community Pantry popular, our local peasant organization, Kasama LR, had been practicing that already. Our local have been very active in our effort to conduct Community Pantry. So, number three, the thriving agriculture is the answer against hunger for the future generation. So lastly, the genuine agrarian reform is the solution, the only solution to uplift the country from poverty. And this is not impossible since Kasama LR made it, despite the relentless harassment of the government and red tagging. That's all the lesson we have learned here in Bungkalan. The video is already saying what about our doing in some years. So thank you and good afternoon to everybody. I'm not fully in English, but I try to say English or our lesson that we have learned and the values we got from our Bungkalan. Salamat.
Thank you, Miriam, for your presentation and sharing on Lupang Ramos. Actually, community pantries are really wonderful. They're initiatives set up by communities, right, to help and also unite with other people amid times like the COVID-19 pandemic. It's wonderful that it began as a form of collective action. Indeed, Lupang Ramos is really setting the trend for us to look into bungkalans and collective farming as a form of resistance and organization. I agree with you, Miriam, what you said, that the impossible becomes possible with collective action. So I hope everyone is still feeling good at this point. So we will be leaving the floor open for an open forum. Our Q&A portion of the Zoom chat is available for you to send your questions. And please raise your hands as well if you have any questions for our speakers. Before we open the floor, I'd like to give a shout out to all our attendees from the organizations we found. So our attendees include PAN India, PKMT Roots for Equity from Pakistan, CCFC Cambodia, HDO Sri Lanka, FDO Farmers Development Organization from Pakistan, Caritas Dalat from Vietnam, Sri Mas from Malaysia, People's Coalition on Food Sovereignty, LRF Pakistan, NRSP from Pakistan, and the Federation of Agriculture Cooperatives in Camarines Sur, Philippines. Thank you for your attendance. So now we'll be opening the floor for any questions to our speakers. So please feel free to chat or send in your questions. Thank you. We have here some statements from Tahir. I congratulate Khoj and PAN-AP for their consistent work and struggle for food security, organic farming, and environmental protection. And happy Localization Day. Let's join to develop ecological economies, communities, and encourage local food. Thank you. So we have Zahur, who is raising their hand.
Yes. Are you listening me?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to add something about agroecology. I think agroecology is a political process. This includes not only the indigenous farming, but also division of the land reforms, the evolution of the corporate agriculture, including WTO, and also the right of the decision making and the local people rights to resources. This is my point that time.
Thank you. Does anyone have any insights that they'd like to share or any new insights they've found from our speakers?
Erin, I want to say something.
Go ahead, Nasira. Thank you.
I agree with Zahur and just want to say that whatever action you take, if that action hits the power structures, it becomes very, very political. And when we talk about agroecology and when we are talking about localization, and if localization starts making some impact in building local economies, it will definitely have a very, very strong reaction from the market forces. So in any case, I mean, whatever we do, I personally believe that whatever we do is political in nature, whether it's personal, private, public, it's all political. But I mean, if we are successful in our localization movement and if we are and successful in our collective actions and community-based economies, we will be, hitting the power structures badly. Thank you.
Thank you, Nasira. So we have some others who are raising their hands. We'd like to request for you to please introduce yourself and your organizational affiliation. So first we have Tahir. Okay, we have allowed you to talk in the webinar. Thank you.
Can you listen me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. It has been very nice to listen to all the learned speakers. In fact, I have long been attached on these food security and environment protection issues in the development sector. My current question to all my learned speakers is that currently we have a great challenge that our young farmers who are a future of our agriculture, they are actually losing interest in agriculture and they are moving to urban centers for cheap labors. What strategies you suggest that we should follow to actually retain their interest in agriculture and to keep them in villages? Because the villages are going to become empty and urbanization process. That again is a problem that all the fertile land surrounding the urban centers that is being converted into, housing societies. So this is a grave question. I would like to listen to learner speaker. Thank you very much.
If I could say a few words. I would say my instant reaction was that we should also start glamorizing village life, the way industry glamorized urban life. See, you see now, it's a very strange development that educated people with very big degrees, foreign degrees and all that, they are much more interested in agriculture, and they are much more interested in living on farms. But our rural youth, they are desperate to move and to go. They are willing to lead a very, very inferior quality life in the urban areas. So I personally feel, being an educationist who always championed, what should I say, that I always critiqued the educational paradigm in my own country, where actually our whole education system devalues and degrades rural life and people doing agriculture. So, I have worked in rural areas for more than 25 years, and I could not find a single person who has pride in his or her ancestral work. And I kept telling them that, you are actually the backbone. You produce food. You are the base foundation of prosperity, if we could have. But, the low self-image they have, actually, that is playing havoc with our culture, with our thinking patterns. So I blame education to a large extent. That what we need to do is we need to have alternative messages. It's not the lip service. We say that no, it's something very good, and they should not come to urban centers. The other thing is that life in our villages is of such low quality that they are mesmerized when they come to cities like Karachi and Lahore and Islamabad. So we need to do things which obviously, I mean, if we say that the state will do, if we say our governments will do, I don't have, then I have no hope. But if, because our governments, they are in a struggle of survival all the time. I mean, I don't remember any so-called democratic government running the country peacefully. So, I mean, I personally feel that the citizens, we should take up the challenge and run alternative movements. We should bring some good name to our relation with the soil. Thank you.
I would like to add to what Nazira said. I think completely agree with what Nazira is saying. I just wanted to add a few points. I think one of the lack of investment in the rural areas, I mean, all governments don't do that. The infrastructure is always for export oriented production, either big plantations or infrastructure to get the mining and the whether it's gold or whatever it is to be transferred. So then you have situations where for example, I went to Andhra Pradesh. There was this whole road, a new brand road, without a single vehicle besides ours plying that road. And when you look at it, it was actually built to bring the aquaculture, the shrimp and the fish that was being produced in these big farms, aqua farms, to the urban areas. And it was crazy. If they can do that, why can't they support farmers and rural development in a much more concerted way? I think that's one big issue that we need to, as part of our advocacy, to really call for real rural development. I think basic health clinics, whether it's banking, small markets, all that I think is something that the rural development is not doing. I mean, when they talk about rural development, it's all this big infrastructure that is really for industry. So I think a review of what is needed, I think, in the rural areas. The second, I completely agree with Nazira in terms of education. We don't have young people coming back. They leave for low-paid jobs in the cities. And I think that's where we need to reverse that. With the pandemic, actually, a lot of those jobs in the service sector, got destroyed, and people are coming back to the rural areas. And I think that's an opportunity to work with them to really look at agroecological production, which, if it is consumer supported, can be much more lucrative. And I think much more, not lucrative, but more supportive of farmers and the community lives and farming communities. So I think that is something that we should be looking at. And I think the final one, I agree with this suggestion about how do we converge food systems with local market systems. Many countries have been doing that. There are many examples, and an exchange of those examples would be very useful. I was talking about Laos, where the farmers, mainly women, in terms of vegetable growing, had the opportunity to use this market, which was done by the local government, set it up for organic markets, and where people, basically came because they are interested in organic foods. It's healthier, and they know that there's no chemicals. So they support that. And then there are many examples like this in Sri Lanka. A local farming community sets up a weekly markets, and consumers come and they get good product, and the farmers are able to sell their products. So I think there are many examples of that. It's small scale because it's really local production with local markets. But we can also kind of look at how do we do value added, so that the young people can come back and help to be creative in terms of this value added agroecological products and produce. So yeah, I'll stop here.
Thank you, Cheryl.
I have to add I need to add one thing. That is, actually, if we look at Pakistan youth policy, there is almost no mention of rural youth in that policy. So when I spoke to the framers of the policy, they just laughed it away. So, I mean, we need to do things like we need to review the youth policy, we need to review the agriculture policy, and we have environment policy, we have so many policies in the country which are just pieces of paper. So we need to not only review those policies, but need to articulate and design alternative policies and push for those policies which are people friendly and which are planet friendly. Thank you.
Thank you, Nasira. So we also have a few questions from attendees who are raising their hands. So first we'll have Muhammad Ali Reza. Please introduce yourself. Thank you. Muhammad, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you.
Yes. And hello, everyone. I being a grower, I'm an agriculturist as well as I'm a politician. So I would like to highlight some points as Tahir asked that how can we keep people or retain people in our villages as compared to, as opposed to, in urbanization. So my point is that because as a farmer here in our area in Pakistan, what we have seen is that the people in our area are not getting a proper wages, daily wages, right? So they are not, they are very, I think they are onerous to the people. So I think that the government in this issue is not helping out. So my point is that if the people in remote areas or the rural area are happy with the, their, money, their wages, the remuneration, and whatever you may call it. But the thing is that if they are happy with that I think that they are not going to go anywhere. So when it comes to the matter of, government is not helping out, So like post-pandemic, the life is totally changed, right? So the people who have some sort of land, they are converting into, the green land into brown. And now they are just looking into the parallel or the substitute, modus operandi of, of earning. So my point is that if you are going, if the government has no proper, policies for the youth as well as for the agronomists. So like in Pakistan, I being a grower, I cannot even put a lot of my, inputs into the fields. So how I'm gonna earn, hefty amount? Whenever we say that there is a food security, so who's gonna, assess our, our food product? We are putting a lot of fertilizers, and chemicals into our fields in order to get high yields, which is only possible with the inputs. So if you're not getting proper, if you are not going to put a lot of inputs into that, so you're not going to earn. So when you're not going to earn, like in Pakistan, you are paying a lot of money. Like I pay 60,000 per acre. That is my expenditure, just on the. That's only on my fertilizers or inputs. So if we are unable to earn a lot of money from that, right? So what would I do? I would definitely convert my land, the green land, into the brown land, and then we'll go for of housing schemes. I will build other activities on that in order to earn penny. The ultimate thing is your economics matters. So if you are, our safety is at risk, our, what we are basically eating in Pakistan is totally, we are at, we don't care that what health hazards are in this sort of, policies. So no one cares. So my point is, I basically am a, politician as well. So what we do is that we basically highlight these issues to the government, to the local government, then we present it to the provincial level. Then we discuss it with the federal level as well. The point is they have already ascertained their few policies and they gave us few chips that we have to move around these points. So I think that would be helpful for our listeners. And thanks for your patience. If you have any question, please let me know. Thank you so much. Love.
My sincere advice is to switch to agroecology. And Pakistan is a heaven for to earn income selling organic produce. So you have to, take initiative. In Pakistan, we have so much of fake organic food. So if you switch to, and you can contact me, and I can share my experience. Actually, with agroecology, you have to set up a system initially, and after that, you don't need to spend 60,000 per acre. It is a very, very low cost affair. It's not like Europe, where you have to spend a lot of money. Here in Pakistan, you can switch to agroecology and earn a very handsome income, spending very little. Thank you.
Thank you, Nasira.
Yeah. Okay, Masha is leaving, so I'll say bye to Masha. Thank you, Masha, for being here. But I just wanted to also add a few more things. I think there were some questions in the chat room. And basically, I think one question, how do we organize the local farmers politically? I think that's something that we can share on how this, the experiences from the different peasant movements. In Pakistan, there's PKMT. In India, there are many groups, peasant groups, women's groups that have been mobilized and organized. So, I think it's possible, and I think that's what needs to happen. Even if you talk about agroecology, you talk about, rights, people's rights, peasant rights, land rights, you really need to organize because you need to speak in a powerful position to politicians, because they're not going to listen. They only see the vote bank. And so we need to have that kind of a political movement that is strong. And I think we can learn from others. I think from KMP with, as I mentioned, with groups in many other groups. And I think that's something that's very important. There is another question about the Dalit, and I think Dalits and their right to land. I think there is in India, there's Panchami lands, and I think Tamil Nadu Women's Forum has been able to basically do the research to document where the Panjami lands are, and then assert their rights as a group, as an organized movement to assert their rights over those Panjami lands. And as well as, common lands, and those issues are all there. And I think we can, you can write to us and we can see how we can provide you with some tools and how this could be possible. With Chanteng, who is from, who responded, asked a question from the Facebook, I think it's very important that just to emphasize the one important aspect of agroecology is really to work with farming communities, to do exchanges, and Cambodia has a lot of examples from where you're coming. I mean, and learning from each other, I think, is one major way forward, but also to move policy, because I think the Cambodian government had a policy on IPM, and now they are looking at organic farming. So policies definitely will help agroecology to expand in the Mekong countries, in Cambodia in particular. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for answering the questions. So we have one more participant. If there are no more questions or insights, we'll have Irfan to be the last to share their question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Irfan, and I have been working with the development sector for last 25 years. So while listening to the discussion, I think in the present situation of Pakistan, where the petrol price has been gone to a very high level, and the agriculture input like fertilizer prices going very high. So in this situation, I think localization and agri-ecology will work. And in this situation, we can promote, this is the right situation, this is the right time where we can promote the localization and agri-ecology in Pakistan. So my understanding is that if we develop a campaign at this situation, we can get a very positive response from the people. So this is my comment on this whole discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Irfan.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes, I agree too.
Okay, so with that, we'll be closing our open forum. And now we'll be heading to our closing remarks. So we'll be having Mr. Rafael Mariano of KMP Peasant Movement of the Philippines to do our closing remarks. And he kindly sent us a video for our presentation today.
A warm greetings of solidarity from the Peasant Movement of the Philippines, KMP. We in the Kilusang Magbubukid ng Pilipinas, or the Peasant Movement of the Philippines, are in solidarity with the World Localization Day 2022 global campaign. We have to further advance and strengthen peasants-led mass struggles and campaigns for genuine agrarian reform, agroecology, and people's food sovereignty. Reject corporate and market-driven neoliberal globalization. Uphold a just, equitable, healthy, and sustainable food systems. We have to actively promote agroecological and sustainable agriculture. We have to defend and consolidate our gains of collective initiatives and agricultural cooperations of peasants and other small food producers in building an independent, self-reliant, and self-sustaining communities for a sustainable production and consumption. Vigorously defend and further strengthen mass organizations of peasants, including of peasant women, farm workers, agricultural workers, fisher folks, and indigenous peoples. further strengthen our cooperation, partnership, and solidarity relations. We have to build a future without WTO, stop land grabs, resist imperialist globalization, long live international solidarity.